which documents the process of co-creating and biocultural indigenous university in the Amazon with the Inga people of Colombia, commissioned by Maria Belén Sáenz de Ibarra from the Art Museum of the National University of Colombia, Bogota, in 2018. So before we collect questions, well, please, if you have any questions, please, for virtual audience, put it in the chat. And for questions in the class, we would collect from the microphone. But while people are formulating questions, I just would like to start with this question that, Ursula, if you could speak a little bit about how Forest Mind came into this world, was created, and.
Sure, it's a combination of various works that emerged from a collaboration with the Inga people of Colombia who live in the south of Colombia, which is an area that was cut off during the whole kind of armed conflict. And in 2018, it became more open, and the curator contacted me to ask if I was willing to go there to see if I could do anything in that region, because we had worked already on other projects, cosmopolitical forest a few years before. So she felt I was willing to do such a crazy thing. And then the Inga leader invited me to actually, or asked if he could take me around these territories for a month. I had the chance to see a number of indigenous territories, not just the Inga, and meet a lot of people, including Daitas and, you know, social leaders. And at that time, really, I had no clue what I should be doing there. It's only when coming back to Switzerland, he had asked me, the leader of the Inga had asked me if I could help him also with a project. And that project was an indigenous university that he wanted to create on his territories. Because education is a very colonial project in Colombia still. And he felt that unless they could define their own education and their own terms of learning, they wouldn't really be able to emancipate and take themselves out of their difficult situation. So I was immediately taken by this project, and since then have been involved with the Inga on co-creating this university. And of course, I became more and more interested in what it would mean to create a university based on the kind of relationship that the Inga have with the natural world, because the south has a lot of forest still, and the highlands have kind of the páramo, so they're very connected to their natural environment, and so I got more and more interested in this notion of the intelligence in nature. And that became actually my main focus then of my personal research, while I was still doing all kinds of things towards creating this university. And as an artist, I had to ask myself, in what way can I be useful in helping this project get on its feet. And one thing was, of course, creating a lot of contacts with the international community in the arts and the academia, and by creating a team of people who would be in Colombia supporting the process, creating kind of writing grants also, and so on and so forth. But I still wanted to make a contribution as an artist through my own artistic practice, and started to document this process, this complicated process of collective decision making, on what this university should be, in what way it should distinguish itself from traditional schools, schools which were mainly missionary background for the longest time in that region. So some of the things I did had to do with creating an audiovisual archive, on gathering ideas that were still in place after several decades of missionary impact, to see what do Inga remember, what is their memory, what is the territorial history, and their relationship to education and possibly to this new university. And so out of this long-term work also emerged interviews that I included a little bit in this piece, but also in another work. And I was able to.
Hello. I would like to just make sure that everybody is muted. Okay. Sorry, Ursula.
Oh, muted. I see. Yeah. So yeah, and I started to create kind of a vessel that could contain all these different projects and efforts to create audiovisual materials and texts and thinking and online platforms, and called this process Devenir Universidad, the process of becoming university. But the university itself will have a completely different name, possibly biocultural university, biocultural indigenous university, whatever.
Yeah, that really makes sense. I saw in the interview that this in Devenir Universidad means becoming university, and it's really makes sense with the forest being as the forest as kind of not a static, but also the university situates in the land, takes the learning with the land. So it really happens, the university is in the forest. And
that's definitely true. And in fact, what is becoming university is not so much the Inga people, but the forest itself. The forest is becoming university as the people engage with it, the people's minds engage with the forest, and therefore you have some kind of a learning situation that that grows from that.
Yeah, and also what was striking for me was in the film, there's some semiotic also paradigm shift. For example, this word resistance doesn't do much for them. They said instead, as in the comment, Jennifer Whiteman, she mentioned also that this appreciation of the term biocultural peace instead of the word resistance. She mentions, I really appreciated the phrase biocultural peace. Could you expand more on the meaning, expanse, and material manifestation, or however you wish to expand to the use of this word in the film?
Yeah, we started to use biocultural because exactly it is both a biological and a cultural epistemological issue, no? And the diversity that we try to achieve operates on both levels, the cultural a cultural diversity that needs to happen, epistemological diversity that needs to happen in the sciences, as well as a biodiversity that needs to be maintained in these forests. Hernando Chindo is the leader of the Inga people. You saw him in the interview. He has a lot of very wise things to say, and he has he thinks that place, that difference that they embody in their way of thinking has to be negotiated on the level of a university. That's why they need also a university, so that they can negotiate all these terms of their own existence with the West, or West, or whatever traditional kind of modern Western science. Biocultural peace, yeah, I mean, indigenous people speak a lot about resilience, resistance, not resilience, resistance as their only language, their only political language sometimes. But he thinks this biocultural peace is actually more useful at this moment, to create associations, to weave things back together, so that we have a better understanding how each of us functions, what our histories of thoughts are that have shaped our minds. And yeah, I think that's a very beautiful term. Because peace, of course, has a very special ring in this region, where really the conflict hasn't disappeared at all. Lots of Inga have disappeared in those last 4 years that I have worked with them. So it's their survival is really their biggest project. And education, in that sense, the university is a project of survival, obviously. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, also in relation to this context, I would like to also quote this phrase in Becoming Earth website, which I will explain. It's online monograph of Ursula's body of work. So there in Living Cognitive Territory at Devonier Universitat, the concept of barrier, fence, division, limit is not the divide, but rather a meeting point for Indigenous knowledge. It is to support an alliance, transparency, or rectitude. It is a place to heal for ourselves, to retake energy, and allow us to meet again. In the healing process, they don't sing in language, they sing some codes that are in the languages of other non-human beings. I was very struck by this phrase, and yeah, so yeah, I would like to also take, if there is any questions, classroom.
Question.
Oh yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
Ursula, can you hear Ali?
I can hear you wonderfully. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Hi, I'm Ali. Thank you for this lovely screening. And I was really interested in something that was in the film, which was the collapse of the distinction between life and its representation. And I was kind of curious if you could speak to two things, because that's a very beautiful phrase. And I guess just the notion of DNA as also potentially a representation in the sciences and sort of the lineage of scientific colonialism, and then just kind of connecting, or I guess your intervention into the kind of visual representation that the West has often imposed on places like the Amazon through botanical drawings or other scientific, quote unquote, effective practices of botany, et cetera, because it seems like you're making kind of an intervention into that lineage. So thank you.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions. They are entangled, of course, somehow. I mean, one of the things at these meetings for creating the university was always that we have to bring these two traditions together. But there was absolutely no concrete examples of how that should happen. So I thought I will go ahead and try my best to do such an exercise. I take the intelligence of nature and I look at it from a shamanic point of view. And then I wanted to go and see, for instance, in Bogota, what are the bioprospecting activities there? What do life science corporations do also today? in terms of the Amazonian forest. And that didn't really come through. I wasn't able to do any filming, but I contacted ETH in Zurich to see what they are doing here at the Science and Technology Institute, the national one, in terms of DNA. And I found a really interesting example is that they worked with the Massive Attack, the band, the group, taking their audio files and translating it from digital into DNA language so that it could be stored forever. Because they don't, because a kind of data carrier, are outdated within a generation. So I thought that could be interesting to put that in relationship to the survival of the rainforest and use sonic files from the rainforest and even image files and translate that into a DNA language. And the chemist there said you could even add biological material and add that into the DNA coding. And that really blew my mind, because that meant that you could combine biological material and digital material and pack all this into the same DNA strand. And so I went to see him and we decided to do that in a way that now that we've coded this, we agreed that it should be really able to work technically, that in 200 years you will be able to read it back into, to then again have the encoding of the rainforest, the individual files. So I thought that was a very interesting thing, because in effect, it means that you can collapse this distinction between life itself and its forms of representation in the digital form of audiovisual files. Yeah. And I think that makes it a very interesting project for me as an artist. And generally, so these new image technologies, images that are produced by machines, like these DNA codings, putting DNA into 4 colors, which is real. I mean, each of these building blocks, these nucleic acids, have a dominant color. And they show in these large circular images that are super high resolution. I only could take small fragments of it into a video file because it's just 100 times too big. But it still shows this composition of color, which vibrates, right, completely. So that is an important part of the research, and generally just finding out that DNA is quantum, meaning that there is a material part and there is a mental part to DNA. And there are people and anthropologists and other theorists who speculate with the fact that the human mind is able to interact with the mental part in the DNA. And basically, this is probably what we're doing when we do meditation without really knowing that we're doing that. But the shamans, of course, they have an enormous training in that. They do nothing but that for 30 years and are extremely proficient and do it on a high level. So this is how this DNA research from both a kind of a chemical, technological side and from a mental to mental be able to mentally direct your thoughts, you know. This is how these two parts come together in the film.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So in relation to this also topic, we have one more question from Professor Granta Miller. As an artist, you are taking participatory action in art, in action, in deep observation to new exceptional heights. Your representation of DNA is breathtaking. What are some future directions you hope to go with using image and sound and coding to deeply witness our deeper dimensions of reality?
Oh, wow. It's true that I have never gone as far as in this video. I've always been interested in metaphysical questions in terms of how video making is contributing to reality making through my field work and through interacting with all these entities in the field. But what I've discovered here in the Amazon really goes on a completely different level. And it was a very demanding task for me to try to bring things together in a way that is explainable and can make sense, you know, with the tools we have. And I don't know to what degree I succeeded in doing that, but it's for sure in the book I'm going at much greater lengths into all these discoveries and analysis and interpretations of what it means to me also as an artist and generally. And of course there is a lot of fantastic stuff around written by anthropologists who have gone in that direction. Recently published, for instance, Microbes and Other Shamanic Beings by Cesar Herrera. Very interesting, fantastic book. And, you know, I'm learning from a lot of different writers and draw this knowledge together.
Yeah, I would like to add that there will be a book called Forest Mind coming, releasing in this fall, together with the exhibition that Ursula, you are preparing right now for November in Bogota. So.
Yeah, it's a big exhibition where we'll show everything I've done in the last 4 years as part of this big commission by Maria Belén Sáez de Ibarra at the National University. And yeah, and maybe then this is also, maybe then my research about all these things also come to an end. And next year, perhaps I can look forward to tackling some new issues, but I don't know yet what they will be. To answer Brenda's question, no, I have no clue yet.
Just one last question. Oh, there's another. Oh, okay. I had another question, but we have another question too from Jennifer Zakin. Thank you, Ursula and curatorial team, for bringing such important work to all of us. Question: will the ayahuasca medicine song, sometimes called the Icaro, be included in the DNA translation for future generations?
That's a great idea. No, I haven't thought of that. I just made recordings of the forest itself, but it's true, there could be yet another dimension to this. Thank you for the question.
Great. So yeah, I think we are 2:08 now, and yeah, we would need to close these public sessions and continue to our more private session with our graduate colloquium. But yeah, again, I would like to really deeply thank for Ursula Biemann to share this very important work, and such a great honor to share this Rensselaer community with you and worldwide beyond. And so, yeah, once more, I would like to also.
Well, thank you, everybody, for being here, for viewing, discussing, and sharing your thoughts. Thanks so much.
We have so many comments, also appraisals. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, we can now move on to the private session. So yeah.
Thank you, Hanae.
Thank you, Ursula.